So, how the U.S. government gets money? Coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense Logical Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So I got part two, and trying to understand how money works and reflects on basically in regards to governments, and specifically I'm talking about the United States government, but the same can be said. I mean, it's true all throughout the world and governments all throughout the world. But in this video, the first video I talked about inflation to explain what inflation is, right? And in this video, I'm going to talk about, how inflation comes into play. Because you can understand what inflation is, but now what causes inflation to happen in the first place? Anyway, so when it comes down to government and money, how the government gets money, basically there's only three ways the federal government gets money. And this is the United States of America. Now, the first way they get money is taxation, right? Fees and taxation. They'll tax your income, you get paid, they take taxes out of that. Or you go to the store or you buy something, they'll take taxes out of that. Or you do anything with dealing with the government, you pay fees, or property taxes and so on and so forth. This is how and then a second way in which the government gets money is they borrow it. And again, this could be from anybody, whether it be individuals or basic organizations, foreign countries, and so on and forth. And the third way the government gets money is by monetizing it. So let's go into the first way, how the government gets money. Obviously, that's going to be that's pretty much cut and paste. We all know this here. Everybody pay taxes. We all pay taxes. I don't care where you are. We all pay taxes. You go to work, clock in, clock out, go home. Go to work, clock in, clock out, go home. It's daily toll. And every other week you get a check if you are an employee. Or, you get a check every other week. And the government takes taxes out of your check. They take it for Social Security, FICA tax. You pay state taxes, local taxes, federal government taxes, all these taxes and fees and such. And then when you go to the store and you buy something, or you go online, they'll add a tax to that. And if you have to go to the DMV and renew your license, you got to pay a fee for that. So all of these things are just ways that the government gets money. They tax it of charge you fees to get money. Now, the thing that makes this unique though from taxation from the other two is that this is not actually it's not a liability to the government. It's like they're just earning your money because they take it from you. So that's not a liability. It's not debt involved. Whereas the other two involves debt. Now we're going to go to the second way the federal government gets money, and that's they borrow the money. Now, how they borrow the money? Well, they borrow the money from anyone who will lend it to them. And they do this by way of bonds. The government will put out an issue for bonds. We all heard of bonds. And you buy government bonds, and you buy it for agreed amount of time. They'll take your money, the government will take your money and use it for that agreed upon length of time. Once that time is up, then they say that those bonds have reached maturity, and then the government will pay you your money back plus interest. This is what the government bonds are. And as I said before, anybody can do this. The federal government will take money from anybody. They'll take it from you as an individual. They'll take it from organizations, businesses, corporations, foreign governments. Right now, I believe that China is the largest holder of these bonds. So the federal government, they will take the money from anybody. Now what these bonds is similar to monetization. The difference between these bonds, borrowing the money with these bonds and monetization, is that it's done with existing money. So if I buy government bonds, I'm taking money that I earned from the money that already exists, from the dollar bills that's already in circulation, and I buy those bonds. So in China, when they buy these government bonds, they're doing it with money that already exists. Which brings us to the third way that the federal government gets money, and that's monetization. And I'm pretty sure you probably heard the phrase monetization or monetize the debt. Essentially what that means is inflating the money. Again, to tie upon the video prior to this on inflation. Whenever you hear debt monetization, that means that the Federal Reserve is just going to create the money out of thin air to buy those bonds. So when the federal government when they don't collect enough money in taxes from American citizens in taxes and fees, and when they can't get enough people to buy enough bonds for the federal government to pay their bills every month, well, then the Federal Reserve comes along and buy government bonds. The difference is that when the Federal Reserve buys the bonds, they do so by creating money out of thin air. They don't do it with existing money like you or I would do, or China does it, or any other organization would do it. The Federal Reserve does it by just creating money out of thin air. They buy up the government bonds by money that they just created out of thin air, and then when those bonds reach maturity, the federal government owes the Federal Reserve back money plus interest. This is one of the reasons why I'm so opposed to the Federal Reserve. I think the Federal Reserve should be gone. Unfortunately, Kennedy wanted the same thing, and they basically convenient theories again. I always like to bring up when I'm talking basic conspiracy theory. But conspiracy theory says that JFK was killed because he wanted to end the Federal Reserve. And I'm all for that. I think we should take the money, the Federal Reserve, and put that money back in the hands of the federal government the way the Constitution says. The Constitution says that only Congress and government can have the access to that money, not a private organization, which the Federal Reserve is. Okay, if we're going to create the money out of thin air to buy up government bonds, at least not have any debt tied to it that you owe somebody else back plus interest. This is something that should be in the power of the government. But anyway, this is the three ways that the government gets money. And again, the reason why we have inflation is because the Federal Reserve buys up government bonds when they can't collect enough taxes, and when another people and there's not enough people with money, existing money enough to borrow. And the reason why the Federal Reserve always have to inflate the money is because the federal government is just wasteful. The federal government basically spends more money than it takes in the taxes, so they have to borrow to make up the difference. And this is the problem, and this is why it's so essential for people to be educated about what's going on. Most people have no clue about it. I mean, everybody's just living their daily lives, going through the daily toil of living, as I said, living their daily lives, and have no clue what's going on in government. And this is why we see such incompetence when it comes down to government. Why these politicians could be in D.C. for, Maxine Waters can be in D.C. for damn near 40 years. And she's most certainly incompetent because we just don't keep up with what's going on in government. Anyway, y'all, so this is the three ways in which the federal government in America gets money and why we have inflation in the first place. So educate yourself and learn. And as always, y'all, until next time.